Hello everyone and welcome back. Well, this week we're going to leave vinyl and go back to CDs, or actually more accurately, we're going to go back to a type of polycarbonate disc. This time it's Blu-rays. And we're going to be unsealing and taking a look at some of the main Beatles films and documentaries on Blu-ray. Specifically, we're talking about the Criterion edition of A Hard Day's Night, Help, Yellow Submarine, and The Magical Mystery Tour, all three on Blu-ray. The Blu-ray edition of 8 Days a Week, Ron Howard's documentary, and last but not least, Peter Jackson's documentary series Get Back in this so-called collector's edition. As I mentioned, most of these are sealed, so we're going to unseal them and see what we have inside. The only one that is unsealed already but still has the wrap on is the Criterion edition of A Hard Day's Night. But I still wanted to unpack this for you because it's a really nice release to look at. At the end of the video, we're going to try to conclude which of these is a release worthy of the Beatles' legacy and which maybe does not justify its price of admission. So, if you're curious about that, please stick around. Now, let's start with A Hard Day's Night, the first movie that the Beatles ever made and released back in 1964, directed by Richard Lester. It is now considered also to be maybe the best movie that they made, even considering documentary genre, also because there are a few Beatles-centered documentaries that are really good. But A Hard Day's Night, has gained such a cult status, has had a very positive reception even back in the 60s, and not only from the fans, which of course would have been super happy, but also from critics. Even more so recently, and more in the past few decades, being recognized as one of the best movies ever made, either from the films that are focused on rock and roll and pop music subjects, but also outside of that genre, often appearing on various best 100 movies of all time lists and other such rankings by different publications and critics. Now, both the screenwriter and the director of the movie were selected by the Beatles because they were familiar with their previous work, but also because in the case of the screenwriter, Alan Owen, the Beatles thought he would be very well suited to write a script with dialogue that would sound authentically Liverpudlian. And he also proved to have a very good understanding of their relationship to fame, or to maybe the exacerbated level of fame that they had achieved in a very short period of time. The director, Richard Lester, was an artist whose work the Beatles had known and appreciated previously, and especially John Lennon, who was apparently a fan of Lester's short comedy film, which he had made together with Peter Sellers, the Running, Jumping and Standing Still film. And so they thought that his style would fit the movie that they wanted to make, and that maybe Lester's approach to comedy would fit their humor sensibilities. Now, the plot of the movie is not the thing that holds the movie together, that gives it its weight, in my opinion. It's more the stylistic choices and the way that this group of 4 people was portrayed on film, which was quite unique at the time for a pop music artist's focused movie. Because despite them playing fictionalized versions of themselves, the dynamic between them, their personalities and the sense of humor really came across quite genuinely off of the film, and maybe with the possible occasional exception of Paul McCartney, who does feel like he's a little bit nervous about his acting during the film. In most of the scenes, the Beatles seem very natural, and their representation of themselves gives the film this level of authenticity that they probably wanted. The film, like I said, was a success with both fans and critics, and I think it brought the group closer to their fans because it provided these additional layers of the Beatles as people. But it's worth saying that some of the stylistic choices that were made during the film, the way that the humor is used during the film, which ranges from slapstick to dry British humor to sometimes absurdist humor, really have managed to reach a wide audience even then, and also have become a source of inspiration for a lot of pictures that came after it, both from the pop rock music or other tangential movie genres, but also from other genres as well. It was of course said that the way that they portrayed the musical sequences in the film, or at least some of them, were precursors to what the Beatles would do in a very short time after that, which were their promotional music short films, which in turn were basically early music videos. And then all of those would be the precursors of actual musical videos and the rise of cultural juggernauts like MTV a couple of decades later. We can go more in depth into the details about these films, and others have done it already extensively through documentaries, articles, essays, books, YouTube videos, And we might be doing that as well soon, but for now, I think we'll just be focusing on this specific home video release, which is the Criterion Collection release of 2022. It is worth mentioning that this is not only the latest in a long stream of home video releases of A Hard Day's Night, but also seems to be by far the best one in terms of quality and content. Of course, even from the beginning, a high level of quality is almost guaranteed by being a part of the Criterion Collection, which is basically one of the best, if not the best, curated collection of films in history that does restorations and distribution of various films that have a certain level of importance in the history of cinema, which is not only from the perspective of the level of video and audio quality of the picture itself, but also by the quantity and quality and weight of the additional content that is included in this edition. So then, let's take a look at it. Now, as I said, this, and you can see it's actually unsealed. So this is the way that I purchased it, because it's the only way that I found it at the time. I bought it off of Amazon from a second party seller from there, or third party seller. But I was pretty happy when it arrived. It was in better condition than this. It still had this wrap on. As you can see, it has the label with the price and the barcode. It also has this hype sticker on front and here. You can see it. Okay. Director approved dual format edition Blu-ray and DVD, and a sort of a small signature of Richard Lester. Now the thing is with this one is, even with it being used, it came in very, very good condition. I was really happy to get it. So it was okay for me that it was unsealed already, because the quality of it was supposed to be very good, and it is. Let's open this up a little bit. I'm going to try to show you what's inside. Even this has been unsealed before. But first, for the box, it's a pretty nice box. It has this sort of custom-made front image of that. And then on the back, you have a lot of description regarding the movie itself and the content. So there's a whole part of this that is describing the special contents, the special features on this. Okay. Now you'll see this is one of the ones that is mentioned on the back, that this is a new 4K digital restoration. So it is mentioning that it's 4K, but it was not super clear from the detail that they were providing on the top if the resolution really of the film is in 4K or is it actually full HD. And we will have this issue actually with other editions in here. So let's see what we have inside. This side with a picture of the Beatles. Okay, Hard Day's Night on this side here. Okay, and when you open it up, first you have the discs. You have one Blu-ray disc and you have two DVDs. That is because this as an edition was really thought out, and the special features are included, all of the special features are included also on the Blu-ray and also on the DVDs. There are other editions of movies that I've bought, and usually they would have the movie on Blu-ray. Either they have everything on Blu-ray or they have the movie on Blu-ray and the special features on DVD. Even if they have the movie also on DVD on the same set, they wouldn't have the special features on both types of this. So this one is actually a nice touch. And the other good part about this edition, which I think it raises its value a lot, is the book that they included. Which is, I went through it a little bit, I won't lie to you. So it covers all of the aspects of the film, as it can do in this kind of a size of a booklet. I'm going to show you the chapters, right? The table of contents for this. Yeah. Kind of like so. Yeah, the table of contents, which shows you exactly what is in the book, and you have a chapter for every part of the movie. There are chapters for the actors who were part of the movie. The ones that had sort of almost starring roles, or at least very important supporting characters to the Beatles themselves. And it's about everything in the movie from start to end, and all of the musical pieces and all of that. So it's very nice. From that perspective, it's quite detailed. It has some pictures as well, of course, between the pages. So yeah, it's a very good booklet. And for a DVD Blu-ray release, you know, at least I'm not sure about the Criterion collection, but in other types of releases, it's not that common to find something like that. Now, regarding the special features, I'm going to just read them off the box itself. It's quite packed, and it's one of the most packed movies that I bought an edition for. So I could only compare this to like big editions of like Lord of the Rings Extended or the Harry Potter box sets or something like that, where you had multiple discs or you know, a lot of documentaries and stuff like that. Okay, so looking at the special features, I'm just going to go through a few of them, but there are quite a few and they are hefty. So you have a couple of documentaries, one from 1994, one from 2002 about the movie. You have a thing that was put together with interviews with the Beatles and behind the scenes footage and stuff like that. In terms of the audio options, you have three audio tracks linked to the movie. So you have a mono one, a newly created stereo, and a 5.1 surround sound mix. Then there's the running, jumping, and standing still film. So Lester's movie that kind of sort of convinced John Lennon that he would be a good director for them. Then you have some, you know, some other interviews. I think there's some interviews with Mark Levinson, which is the author that was written, you know, Beatles-related books. Of course, you have the booklet, which I showed you earlier. There's another mini documentary, I would say, Anatomy of a Style, which is a short piece on Lester's directing methods. So it's really packed with extras, and they seem to be very interesting extras, having 2 documentaries at least, plus the sort of mini ones, and then also having Lester's short film, which is important inspiration for the Beatles in this case. You know, aside to that, you're adding the book. It's an excellent release, and yeah, it's something. If from all of these ones, in terms of the quality of the release, this is the one I would recommend the most. Now, the second one chronologically on our list will be the 1965 follow-up to A Hard Day's Night, Help, which was again directed by Richard Lester, but this time is scripted by Mark Bem and Charles Wood. The plot for this one attempts to be a clearer, targeted narrative, but works less, in my opinion, than in the first film. Possibly also because, due to various reasons, not in the least being the fact that the Beatles themselves were not involved as much in the story and in the ideas behind the film, but they were also going through one of the most exhausting years of their careers and had gotten into pot smoking, and to their own admission, they were kind of high for most of filming. The film has its own distinct look, being in full Technicolor versus the previous black and white picture, with filming happening in the very exotic places like the Bahamas and the Austrian Alps. In terms of the plot and partially the way that the narrative was constructed, this is a sort of a mix between a buddy comedy, a mystery, and sort of a James Bondish parody, with the main plot point of the film being that Ringo gets kidnapped by a bunch of weird cultists. Now, they also continued their style of humor, but I think they leaned more towards the absurdist angle with this one, which will even be more visible in their following picture, Magical Mystery Tour. Worth saying also that Help, which included quite strong lineup of musical performances, was yet another stepping stone in the development of the music video concept. Now, this Blu-ray is a 2013 release, or it's possibly a re-release, as I did find a version of this dated as far as 2007. Now, this is one of the ones which we will get to unseal, or actually, you know, most of the ones that we will have next will be unsealed live. So we'll get right into this. The One thing that is nice about this, of course, it still has the red hype sticker. It's weird because it says the first time on Blu-ray, fully restored high-definition film with 5.1 surround soundtrack featuring 7 classic Beatles songs and so on. So this has some dates in here about 2013, but they also have a date that is 2007, and I did find a version of this that would appear to be Blu-ray from 2007 on Discogs, I think. So I'm a bit confused as to whether initially it was released in 2007 on Blu-ray and this was just a re-release of 2013, or actually this was the first one. But anyway, so let's open this up. I'm going to try to keep, although on these Blu-rays it's a little bit more difficult, but I'm going to try to keep the outer wrap just because of the hype sticker. But, you know, if it's not possible, then it's not going to be a huge problem. Okay. But if I can, I'm going to try to keep this. Okay, I think this should do it. Okay, let's try and get this thing out. So we're going to look at what is inside. We're going to take a look also at the special features, just like we did for A Hard Day's Night, just to go through them a bit to see what they have, at least compared to that edition. Okay. I mean, this will survive somehow. It will not look good, but yeah, there it is. So before we go through it, you know, the box again, I don't know if this is the sweet spot. On the back, you have the contents of the edition, of course, with the special features mentioned. Okay, let's see what we have here. So the good thing about this also is, aside from the special features that are like video content, you also have a small booklet as well. But anyway, the disc holder with the booklet inside has these nice pictures. They seem like they are like postcards based on the movie Help. And it's a pretty nice insert, I think. Looks quite nice. And the good thing is that for these editions, they are using, it's not like with the CD, so they are using these plastic holders, which are better to hold the disc anyway. Now, let's see the small booklet. I mean, it's, you know, don't imagine it's like a book of a super special edition or something, but it's really nice to have, and it has, well, like it has a few nice pictures and a few things about the making the film. So, you know, it's a good, you know, this is not a Criterion collection, but for what it is, this is a good additional piece of content. You saw the disc. Let's look a little bit at the special features just to see what we would have inside here. So it's already kind of going downhill from the first one. So they do have a documentary, but it's a 30-minute documentary about making the film. It's nice enough because it's with like interviews with Richard Lester and the cast and crew and so on. Then you have a missing scene, or a deleted scene as it's called nowadays, featuring Wendy Richard. You have sort of another mini documentary called The Restoration of Help, about how they restored the original picture in full HD and so on. The Memories of Help, which is a sort of a, I think, session of interviews with the cast and crew where they remember what it was like working on the film. You have the 3 theatrical trailers, and you have some radio spots from 1965. This is something that usually was included even in sort of older special editions of certain DVDs. So yeah, that kind of thing. But then, you know, with the 16-page booklet, that adds up quite nicely. Still not at the same level as, you know, A Hard Day's Night was. Now, the next one that we're going to be looking at is this Blu-ray release of The Magical Mystery Tour. The film itself was no longer a feature film, but rather a made-for-TV movie that the Beatles created and then broadcasted through the BBC One channel. First in black and white on December the 26th, 1967, and then finally in color on BBC Two a few days later on January 5th, 1968. It did have a later limited theatrical release in the US in 1974 and then worldwide in 2012. The movie was, however, thought of and shot in full color, And actually that played an important part, I think, in the otherwise often vague concepts of the movie. But the fact that the film was a complete flop was partially attributed by the Beatles to this first black and white broadcast on BBC One. In this one, the concept of a proper script or plot or focused narrative was completely thrown out of the window, and the movie was more of a collage of barely logically connected scenes while being largely improvised. The surreal or absurdist nature of the scenes and the humor do give it a very unique flavor. At least for me, it seems like it's a very special film, and it did include one of the most appreciated soundtracks ever, as the Beatles were themselves going through the psychedelic period of the 60s, which seems to have heavily influenced the music and ideas for this film. It's definitely not masterpiece cinema, but has some iconic images and sounds associated to it, especially for Beatles fans. And of course, it was the only case in which the Beatles themselves were credited with writing, directing, and starring in their own movie, although it seems like most people involved seem to agree that the main creative force for this one was Paul McCartney. Now, this release is from 2012. There is another collector's edition, which also includes the vinyl EP, the Blu-ray, as well, and a DVD. But as far as I know, the special features included on that one are exactly the same as on this one, or almost exactly the same at least. And we're going to just go through them a little bit just to see what we have on here. So we have a director's commentary by Paul McCartney. This should be interesting, right? Because he's one of the main driving forces behind the movie. He should have a lot of insight on how things went and what was the thought process behind this. Then you have the making of the Magical Mystery Tour, which is a 19-minute mini documentary which has interviews with Paul and Ringo and with some of the other cast members and crew, and includes some unseen footage. And then we have Ringo the actor. That's a 2-minute something featurette with Ringo reflecting on his role in the film. Then we have another featurette which is called Meet the Supporting Cast, about 11 minutes, which is sort of a feature on the background and careers of Nat Jack Lee, Jesse Robbins, Ivan Cutler, the Bonzo Dog, and all of those that participated in the movie. Then we have 3 of the songs, so your mother should know, Blue Jay Way, and The Fool on the Hill. And these include 3 new edits of the performances in the movie, all with footage that was not seen in the original film, so that should be nice. Next we have the Hello Goodbye performance from Top of the Pops in 1967, when the Beatles allowed the BBC to film them in the edit suite where they were working on the film. Then this was turned in a promo by the BBC. So we have a couple of more featurettes, if you will. It's Nat's Dream, which is a scene which was directed by John with Nat Jack Lee, which was not included in the film. And then you have I'm Going in a Field with Ivan Cutler, where he performs the song in a field. It was also not included in the original film. And finally, at the end, we have Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush, almost 2 minutes, which is the filming of Traffic acting out their 1967 hit single Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush, which initially was commissioned by the Beatles for inclusion in the movie, but it never actually happened. Yeah, so this is kind of it with what it contains as special features. Let's open this up now. This one, I think I'm not sure if I even need the cutter, because technically here I cannot and will not keep the outer sleeve. So there we go. At least this one we can get rid of. So here it is. I mean, it's a pretty basic Blu-ray release with the blue case, nothing special. Not, the printing on the back is not great. I feel like even the colors are a little bit faded on this front cover, but it is what it is. This is what we have inside. This is the disc. The disc is nice. It's a nice variation. And we have this small booklet as well. Let's take this out. Yeah, and behind it we have this, which was also, I think, in the EP. Okay, let's see the booklet for a second. So I thought initially that this may replicate the booklet that was used on the EP itself, right? Because that included a booklet. It's not really. It's just a few pictures. Oh, here it is. It's more like a video game booklet and not even that. So there's a few pictures here. We have a few words by Paul McCartney and an introduction by Paul McCartney here on the first page, and then just the cast and details about the production crew. So yeah, that's about it with Magical Mystery Tour. It's a pretty thin edition. Of course, they have that collector's edition, so I probably didn't get the right edition. That one was made more consistent. But in terms of the special features, again, it makes no difference, right? If you have the EP separately, you probably don't need the DVD nowadays. So that edition, I don't know how value for a buck it is. The following item on our list is this 1968 animated film, Yellow Submarine, directed by George Dunning. This is the only Beatles animated film if we don't consider the animated series from ABC. Of course, the Beatles themselves didn't have anything to do with the production of this, other than their music being used in the film and them appearing as a very short cameo at the end for the purpose of fulfilling their contract of appearing in 3 pictures for United Artists. And otherwise we can say about this that it has a somewhat clearer plot than the previous movie, with the Beatles being called out to rescue the underwater mythical music-filled Pepperland from the film's antagonists, the Blue Meanies, which they do manage to save through the power of their music and friendship, I guess. As with A Hard Day's Night, maybe it's not the plot or narrative that makes this film iconic, but rather the same 3 things that made some of their previous work iconic as well. The artistic choices and animation style, the interactions between them, complete with very good voice actors and some very well-fitted jokes and lines apparently written by the poet Roger McGill, himself a product of Liverpool, as the Beatles were. And then the third thing, of course, is the music. Now, in the end, even without the participation of the band, this remains one of the most iconic pieces of film ever associated with them. As a standalone picture, is a masterpiece of animation, visual art combined with memorable musical pieces. It's clear that it ended up inspiring future generations of animators and graphic designers, and as a result was heavily referenced in cartoons and adult-oriented animation, comedies and otherwise, especially from the 1990s onwards, because that's a kind of golden age of that type of animation, in things like The Simpsons, Futurama, Family Guy, Robot Chicken, or Super Jail. This Blu-ray edition is from 2012. It's the same year as the Magical Mystery Tour. And it says here that it's the first official Beatles Blu-ray release, which makes me again wonder what's then with the deal with the initial 2007 estimated release of Help. Now, we can just, take a look at this one, and so we'll need to unseal it as well. I'll try, as with Help, to keep the outer sleeve, the outer wrap, as long as possible. Also because of this hype sticker, which is still there and it still looks nice and new. This one, so actually I was going to say this, most of these I got off of Amazon, except for the Magical Mystery Tour and the next one, which is the first documentary in the series that we have. I bought from Romania from a store, but the others, the special editions, I could only find them to be delivered with a proper price on Amazon. And the good thing is, I found the Yellow Submarine, Help with very good prices, and of course, Hard Day's Night was not sealed. I couldn't get them myself. It would have been quite expensive because I ordered some books from Amazon as well at the same time with these videos last autumn. And I was lucky that a friend of mine was traveling to the US in that period, and she stayed for I think a couple of weeks, so she had time to actually receive my Amazon parcels and then bring these over to Romania, which is quite nice. of her. So now we have opened this up. Before we, oh no, there we go. I'll try to keep it like this. So again, the front, of course, the classical Beatles Yellow Submarine front picture as well present, at least partially, on the album. And you have the hype sticker here at the top. Classic animated 1968 film with frame-by-frame hand restoration in spectacular HD, right? Then you have some of the details about the movie and the special features and the you know, audio and video details of the disc. Now this is another interesting part with this one as well. So again, it says on the back, now lovingly restored digitally in 4K by hand, frame by frame. This visionary groundbreaking film, blah, 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 tra la la. It says that it's restored in 4K, but again, the resolution that this is on is still full HD, 1080p, right? Now, this probably makes sense, so they're restoring it at a better quality, and then they can produce a very good 1080p copy, but this might also mean that they are in a position to produce a good 4K copy in the future. And, you know, before we go to what's inside physically, let's look at the special features. We have an audio commentary track by John Coates with additional contribution by Heinz Edelman. I'm not sure what that contribution is, if it's like 2 minutes or 5 or whatever. We have a Mod Odyssey featurette, the original theatrical trailer, some storyboards, some pencil drawings and behind-the-scenes photos, interviews with crew and vocal talents, and a collectible booklet. And this one I want to show. So it's not anything special. It's kind of similar on par with Help, right, with what we had there. So it's decent. Now, this is what we have inside. We have the 4 Beatles peeking out from the Yellow Submarine. It's a nice touch, I think. And if you open this up, let me just, I hate it when this happens, when the disc is upside down. So I'm just going to put it like this so that you can properly see it. Okay, so the disc is here. It's nice, it has, if you can see, the Capitol logo right here. I thought it's interesting. And then we have this nice pocket. Well, and I also like the patterns on the back of this, right, that you can see through the disc holder. And then we have 2 things. So one of them is probably just a commercial to love, yeah. So, and it's nice, it's still new, and it's it's glossy. And some commercial to the Yellow Submarine song track, which actually we saw on this channel a few days ago. Okay, now this is the booklet. And let me just take them out, take all of these pieces out so that you can see them properly, because I think. So, the booklet, it's again similar to what we had for Help. It's a little bit thicker though, that one only had like 4 pages. And this one has quite nice content, it's quite small printed. But I like that they went to the trouble of, you know, building this booklet. It's like a mini version of, let's say, the Let It Be deluxe edition set, right? Kind of like that, at least visually, with this scrapbook aspect to it. It's quite nice. The credits on the back and some details about the Blu-ray, right? And then, this is also a nice touch. You have a set of additional items. So we have these transparent prints. I'm not sure if you can stick them somewhere, or you just have to put them against something as sort of in a scrapbook. So I'm just going to take one of these white things here, sort of to reflect properly the picture so you can see them properly like this. Oh, there we go. You have John. And then we have George. I'm not sure they're in the order that I took them out, but you know, doesn't really matter. We have Paul. There we go. And we have, of course, last but not least, never least, Ringo. Okay, and we also have some stickers. Some nice Yellow Submarine stickers, which I will probably die to put on my laptop or something, and then my daughter will see them and she will ask me to put them somewhere and she will put them all in the same place. or I could just hide them and pretend that I don't have them. So if you look at this, you know, it's a pretty nice edition. I think it beats Help. So it has the booklet, which is a little bit bigger. It also has these extra things, which are very nice. They seem good quality. The whole case with this whole part here and the outside is glossy, right? So, you know, all in all, I think a successful special edition, this. Now, as we've completed a set of featured TV, let's say fictionalized or original scripted Beatles films, let's also take a look at a couple of the best, in my opinion, Beatles documentaries that will also released on Blu-ray. We'll leave out the Beatles anthology, which is somewhere behind me, I think, there, which I did briefly show before in one of my videos, linked in the description, as not only is not sealed, but it's pretty plain DVD box set release from the 90s. And also, although we can have a separate video about anthology, as a set of items, looking at the DVDs, the CDs, the vinyl records and book. Given that the documentary series did not receive a Blu-ray release so far, it's out of scope for this video, although it does receive an honorable mention. Now, let's take a look at what we have here in terms of documentary. So we will start with the first one we'll look at is this Blu-ray copy of Ron Howard's 8 Days a Week documentary. Fully titled The Beatles, 8 Days a Week, The Touring Years. This is a very nicely put together documentary, and it chronicles some of their key performances from between 1962 and 1966, and was released itself, the documentary, in September of 2016. Not much to say about this, except that it's a well-made documentary, clearly made with passion by Ron Howard, with the approval and collaboration of the remaining Beatles themselves and George and John's spouses, and it features nicely restored footage and pictures along with some cleaner audio versus what we had before for some of these performance scenes. Now, I will unseal this. The difference between this and the Magical Mystery Tour, this also has, or actually the Magical Mystery Tour also had like a small hype sticker. This is not a great one, it's just the one where you have different publications giving it 5 stars or whatever. So it's not something that I'll probably miss too much by opening this up. I used the cutter, I could have just opened it normally, but there goes nothing. And I don't expect much of this. In the end, on the back, there are 0 special features. I mean, I know it's a documentary, but they could have released like some interviews with them or something, you know, that they did as promoting the documentary. Because I remember I saw some on YouTube. You could show some, you know, behind the scenes things of the crew, people working on restoring the data, and so or restoring the video. So, but yeah, anyway, this is what it is. It's plain. It's the same picture all over the disc and the small booklet. Now let's see what's going on with the booklet. Maybe this is actually the extra that I could expect. Yeah, I mean, it's decent. It's like a booklet for a CD, right? With some details about this documentary, you know, by Ron Howard. So, you know, also some pictures up in there. So yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's okay that at least they included this, but otherwise there seems to be nothing else except the documentary here. So, you know, it's a decent looking Blu-ray, but that's about all it is. Now, of course, I'm not talking about the quality of these, or the quality of the pictures themselves of the documentary. That's another discussion for another time. Now, another item that is related to this one, and I just wanted to show you, initially I wanted to unseal it, but then I didn't really see the point of it, is the CD of the 8 Days a Week Touring Years tracks, basically live at the Hollywood Bowl and some bonus tracks. You know, not much to say about this. It's a nice one to have, and of course you can, it gives you the possibility to listen to the songs outside of watching the documentary itself. So that's quite nice. And the restoration that they did was, you know, pretty good given the circumstances. But yeah, it's pretty much this. If you ever want to see me unseal this, let me know. But I don't think it's something that people will be super passionate about. But anyway, it's a good one to have as a companion to the Blu-ray movie. Now, the last item on the list today is maybe my favorite movie or series from this whole batch, and one that impressed me very much the first time I saw it, and the second time I watched it, and also the third time as well. But at the same time, one of the most disappointing Blu-ray releases of the entire batch, and that is Peter Jackson's Get Back documentary limited series on this so-called Blu-ray collector set from 2022. The documentary itself was supposed to be a feature-length documentary released in theaters, but then it was turned into a 3-part limited series documentary on Disney+, which was released in 2021. To me, everything was excellent about this series. The restored images, the sound, the narrative that was put together across the 3 parts, the level of, I believe, unprecedented intimacy and understanding that we had with the Beatles in one of their final important moments as a band. We got to see their creativity at work. We got to be present on the birth and development of some iconic songs, witness their relationships with both ups and downs, and then at the closest level possible, and seeing and hearing things a lot of us had never done before. Even those who had been aware of many of these moments, especially through previous bootleg releases on top of the original Let It Be documentary film, still could appreciate the additional elements and especially the precise restoration of images, but especially sound. Now, this is another piece that warrants its own video, like the Get Back documentary, but today we're just going to look at the actual Blu-ray release from 2022. Before we open this, because after we open it, I'll try again to keep the stretch wrap. We'll see how that is possible. It might be better for this one than the others. But this is one of those Blu-ray boxes that has this cardboard sort of half sleeve, if you will. You know, that it starts on the top here, this part, but this continues over here, and this part is basically removable. So if you remove the stretch wrap, this will fall out and then you'll not know what to do with it. In many of my Blu-ray releases that I have at home for other movies, I tend to stick them in the box if I can, but then more often than not, this will just come apart. So I don't really see the point of this. It's really stupid thing that they're doing, because they're trying to keep the box with a certain format on the back, with a certain picture or whatever it is back there, and then just have all of these mandatory, right, Blu-ray description details on something separate. But if you put it on something separate, at least make it something that can stay, sticks to the box to a certain extent. Anyway, we're just going to open this up. Now, I have to say from the start that I kind of really dislike this edition of this collector set because it lacks any kind of video extra features. So it has nothing. You will see what it has inside. It has nothing on the side of that. So I think, we kind of messed a lot, because there was a lot that they could have included from the restoration process, the work that they did, because it was extreme work to do this and to restore all of these images and kind of put them together. So all of that would have warranted a documentary on its own. Beyond that, there can be scenes that were not included in the final cut. There could be, maybe to think about, and this is probably in the future though, a restoration of Let It Be, the actual movie, and put it there as an extra. There could have been a lot of possibilities. But anyway, let's open this up. So okay, let's unseal this. I'll try to keep the outer stretch wrap and everything else. Do I want to unseal it from the back? Yes, to keep the stretch wrap based on the front. Maybe I should have like this. There we go. And here. And this should be good enough. Oh, that's one. There we go. Okay, this should be good enough. Let's see what we get in this super collector set. Now this is so thick. It's as thick as the Hard Day's Night, but it doesn't have the contents of a Hard Day's Night. And remember, Hard Day's Night had that beautiful book. But this has a nice book, but then, like a type of a book holder for the discs. But then I will tell you, this is completely matte, and it gives a very cheap paper vibe. Not cheap, but necessarily something that would, if it gets a little bit of water on it, it will be damaged immediately. It's a nice idea, and the letters actually are, they are not necessarily laminated or anything, but they are with a different texture, right? Like they were varnished somehow. Now, opening this up, get back, bam, then you have the content inside. So here you have the disc holders, which is, you know, the bane of my existence, these cardboard sleeve disc holders. They're beautiful in the sense of they look kind of like a booklet. You have these pictures on each of them, but oh goddamn, taking these out, putting them back in, you're better off just watching on Disney Plus. And the only special feature of this are these 4 pictures in the style of the White Album, right? Where you have these kinds of 4 pictures. And let's take a look at them. You have Paul. You have John. This is a nice one. You can see he's like having fun, happy. George, one of the protagonists, right? And Ringo. And, you know, that's about it. That's all. Collector set. This is the collector set. That's all they have. Thankfully, the documentary is really, really great. So for me, it's worth buying it just for that, just to own that, because it's a really good piece of film, of documentary film. But otherwise, as a collector set, this is abysmal, right? Okay, so now before we close, I thought we'd make a short ranking of these items, not from the perspective of the actual movies and series quality, and not even for the video and audio quality of these releases, because many of them were anyway sealed for me, but the overall package and contents of these releases. So as you can see also here on the front, the last one in the list, or anyway, the first one from the end, on 6th place for me in terms of a Blu-ray release for a Beatles-related movie or documentary is 8 Days a Week. It's not much to say. There's basically no special features, almost nothing as an extra, just a small booklet, as you would have on most Blu-ray, DVD, and CD releases. So not much to say there. This 5th place is Get Back, the so-called collector's edition. At least you have the pictures here of the 4 Beatles, right? And documentaries. You know, I like both, but the Get Back I like a little bit more, so I guess can give it the edge just for that. Plus the packaging is more fancy, right? On 4th place, it's the Magical Mystery Tour. This is not bad. It has a very small booklet, but it's just the fact that, you know, the special features are nothing special, and then the packaging is just a regular Blu-ray release. Of course, again, you can try to find and sort of get, if you feel more collector-y, the sort of collector's edition with the vinyl EP and all of that. On 3rd place, Help, this Blu-ray release of Help. It has some special features. It has a little bit of booklet inside as well, a 16-page booklet. You know, it's not as packed as others, but it does have some things, right, that are can be considered special features and like something that you wouldn't have gotten to see otherwise. So, you know, it's in 3rd spot for me from this set at least. On 2nd place, this beautiful release of Yellow Submarine. You know, it doesn't have too much extra versus the Help one. It has a couple of things because it has those additional stickers and all of that. In terms of the documentaries, is probably on par. Possible that Help has a little bit more in that sense. I think it could use more, definitely. It's such a iconic piece of cinema. It's worth more in that sense. It can have more data, information about how the movie was produced, how the animation was produced, and so on. But it's still a nice release, nonetheless. And the last one is, of course, the Criterion Collection edition of A Hard Day's Night from 2022. Again, it's just excellent. You have the DVDs, although probably not a lot of people still collect DVDs, but still, it's good that they included that in 2022. So 2 DVDs and 1 Blu-ray, all of them containing the exact same stuff, but in different resolution, different quality, which is an important thing. But also the set of extras that you have here, the special features, they are really special features. And you have a quite significant book to get out of this edition. So usually I don't like to give advice to people on buy this or buy that. I just give them my experience or opinion with certain things. But this one, if you can get your hands on this one, that one I would definitely recommend. I would stand by it. Well, that's about it for today, but please let me know what your feelings were about these releases, or if you maybe have some other better versions of these films in your collection that would be preferable to any of the ones we saw today. Again, I really do appreciate when anyone is spending some of their time to go through any of these videos. So thank you very much for joining us, and we hope we'll see you here next time.